This is Sexy Funny Raw, where we chat all about the world of sex, from dating and relationships all the way to the adult industry itself. I'm Silvia Saige, and this is my Pornspective, answering all the questions you weren't even brave enough to ask Google. Get ready, because Sexy Funny Raw starts now. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Funny Raw. I am your host, Silvia Saige, and joined with me in studio, as always, is Dr. Eddie giving us his public health perspective. And I am very honored to have our guest in studio this month. I almost said this week, Miss Angelina Mirenda. Hello. Hi. Angelina is an actor, creator, and sex educator currently enrolled in the Sexual Health Alliance's certification program. She believes that sex, like education, shouldn't be dry and teaches through a lens of approachable comedy, which I feel like we have so much in common when you say that, say it like that, because that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
You know, just make sex a topical conversation starter, make it funny, make it relatable. Like, I love the message that you are putting out into this world. So
I think laughter takes out some of like the weight and the fear of it, right? And makes it feel a little bit more human and relatable.
110%. And I'm so thankful because a guest we've had on previous, Ray Renaga,
yes.
Mr. Ray, as a good friend of mine, he is the one who actually linked the two of us up. And so I could not be more grateful. And I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So this week I wanted to get into something a little bit more serious. So we are talking mental health. I feel like especially around the holidays, it's definitely something we want to address because I feel like during the holidays, it's something people deal with more than other times of the year, perhaps. Maybe you're dealing with family or the lack thereof. And I want to talk about it. And I want to talk about the difference between mental health and mental illness and how sometimes they can coincide and not coincide. Dr. Eddie, can you give us a little bit more of the intel?
Absolutely. I think probably the biggest distinction between the two is one is diagnosable, so mental illness needs to be diagnosed.
Right.
Whereas mental health is really how we function, live, play, all of those like normal relationship things.
More depression, anxiety-based.
Well, those can also be diagnosable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there is some overlap between the two, and that kind of creates a little bit of stigma when we're talking about mental health. But the definition of public health actually includes mental health as a variable. Mm-hmm. And it's only recently that we've started to really talk about mental health in any substantial capacity from the day to day.
Right.
And so in the holidays, you're often impacted by a variety of different factors, such as like family and triggers and schedules and time and expectations. And it's all of those things together that can certainly impact our mental health.
Yes.
And so sometimes mental illness, you can also have good mental health while you have mental illness, and then vice versa. You can have great mental health and have a mental illness. I think I just said the same thing.
Yes. But you know what I liked about that is you also said that so you can be experiencing different things at once. So like I generally feel happy in my life right now. However, I just had a discussion with my mother this morning to where I know that this situation is not going to be good and I'm going to have to directly address this situation. So I am very stressed out about that situation. But as a whole, I don't feel upset. I don't feel depressed. But I know, again, I'm going to have to dive into some very depressive and dark issues with my mother when I leave here. And that is also setting me into my own like mental kind of fuckery, you know, because again, I don't want to be sad today, but I was actually in a group message between all of my family and I didn't realize that. And I said something to my cousin that I didn't think my mother would be hearing. And then my mother did hear it. And her text to me was, "Let me call you when I get off work." And I was like, oh, Lord, who knew we were on a group chat? Should have looked that one over. Should have looked at everybody addressed in that text message before I sent it out. But it's all you can do, you know, so.
It's actually pretty common. I would say that 1 in 5 people in the U.S. Go through experience some sort of mental health issue along the way from year to year. And so the numbers are quite high.
And I feel like loneliness is definitely one of those top things during the holidays because not everyone has the family around. Do you celebrate with family, or are you a Friendsgiving type person?
Man. Okay. I'm very blessed in the social department.
Yeah, good.
My family lives in San Francisco area, which is not too far from Los Angeles.
Close.
So pretty easy to do commutes for holidays. And then I have been in LA for a little over a decade now.
Oh, amazing.
So I have a beautiful support system down here.
Wow, I've been here almost 8 years and I have like 4 friends. So you're doing
Girl,
doing
great.
With me. Yeah, you're doing so good. No, I love that. And do you ever feel like you're experiencing any like extra anxiety or extra anything through the holidays?
Yeah, I love the holidays, but I think sometimes then that adds the pressure, right? Of like, this is supposed to be a happy time of year, and it doesn't always feel that way, especially day to day. Your moods shift. We're constantly changing from minute to minute, and there's I think a desire and a pressure that like, oh, we should just be happy. There's Christmas lights.
Yes. Do you have, now, I don't know your relationship with your family. Is it super close, or are you, okay, good. So you are one of the lucky ones. You're very blessed in that department.
They're weird. All of them are weird, which is perfect.
That's great.
Yeah.
Weirdness is good. I feel like when you're trying not to be weird, that's when you go down a scary hole, when just trying to like land in the same way as all the other chips have landed. That's what scares me.
Yeah.
But let's take a moment, because I do want to relate this into your sexuality, because mental health, being free and open with your sexuality and having the sex is something that can really help with your mental health. The two are directly correlated to each other, but also can be directly correlated in the opposite direction and be very bad for your mental health. So let's get further into that. Dr. Eddie, how do you think that this directly affects men?
Oh, gosh, it affects men in a variety of different ways. Well, masculinity also affects men in a variety of different ways, because these aren't things that we're typically raised to discuss. But I'd say sexually, immediately, you can kind of connect one to the other, is the impact of anxiety on erectile dysfunction.
Yes.
And so some of those expectations of having to perform and not being able to perform create anxiety on top of anxiety for some men. And because of that, it perpetuates like a negative feeling that can really go in a really bad direction.
And the other expectations of sex are, I just having this conversation with a friend last night, is he and I had been sexual together in the past, but no longer, because I am not usually satisfied. And that was his complaint, is you're not satisfied with our sex. And I said, I am satisfied with you and your penis. I think a lot of men are afraid that they have to have this 12-inch penis because I'm a porn actress. Not the case at all. I love the size of this person's penis. My not being fulfilled came from the lack of time. We would be having sex because I wanted the sex for much longer than he was wanting to perform. So I feel like there are so many expectations, from the dick size to how long you're going to be performing to if you can get it up, if there's erectile dysfunction issues going on. All of this leads to so much more stress. But on the opposite end, if you can have the happy, healthy, communicative sex with a partner, you can also have free mental health, and the kind of like the veil of the blanket is lifted and things in your life seem much happier, because a happy sex life kind of feel like leads to a happy mental health place. Am I completely wrong in saying that?
No. So I think when we're talking about all of this, it's helpful to look at sex as being something that's part of a bio-psycho-socio-cultural framework.
Yes.
So all of these things contribute to how we experience sexuality within ourselves and to each other. And that means that like the chemistry of our body and the function of our body as we age, depending on our health, has an impact on the way that we are performing. I would say the way that we are connecting and engaging.
Yes.
And then psychologically, like, where are you at? Is your mental health in a good place? Because the hormones and things like that also have an impact on the biology. Are you getting aroused? Is there enough blood flow to the genitals to allow that to happen? And then like socially and culturally, the way that we define things like masculinity, femininity, like our own sexuality in terms of the spectrum and like the Kinsey scale, all of those things also impact how we are connecting to other people.
Oh, absolutely. And it's even how we view ourselves, whatever insecurities you may be feeling about yourself or about your body or about anything. I certainly worry about my aging and my aging body and being with different people. I'm like, oh no, they're going to see that things aren't as tight as they once were, so even people who I'm being built up on a regular basis on social media, of people just lining up telling me I'm beautiful. And meanwhile, I'm still in this fuckery of my own brain where I can't even, I can't walk out of a room with my butt showing to you. I have to walk out backwards because I'm so worried about how you're going to view my ass. That's my biggest insecurity. So I think all of that kind of builds in. But talking with your partner and having the communication before and what you're both looking for in the sex and the aftercare, the after conversation of sex, I feel like is also so important, of like how you both felt during that and how, maybe you want to change things the next time to make each other more comfortable. Getting to that good mental health place with your sex and with your partner can be a very, very beautiful thing. But I do want to really instate, we are obviously not psychiatrists. If you are going through something mentally, we are going to provide you with a hotline and numbers that you can call in suicide crisis or emotional distress. Please reach out to other people. And also know that you're not alone. So many people are going through this. I know I've personally suffered with my own mental illness all through my 20s, really. I was a hugely suicidal human and was even forced by the government of Fine, Missouri to have a few weeks stay in their mental ward because attempting suicide is illegal. So if you do not succeed, you are in trouble. So reach out to other people. You are definitely not alone. I don't mean to laugh at suicide, but I do want you to know that you are certainly not alone, and those feelings are true and they are valid. And we did mention in the paperwork here, Dr. Eddie, how sometimes mental illness can feel like mental health concerns can actually feel like an actual illness, and
like a physical manifestation.
Physical illness. And I know for a fact, at least how I felt, mine was always, I wanted to kill myself so I could show other people how bad I was hurting, because that was the only way they were going to feel my pain, was to take my own life, because then they would be sad I was gone, and then they would feel how I felt inside, because I just didn't know how to relay it to anyone. I didn't know how to tell them how bad I actually felt. I could sleep in bed for a few days, but at the end of the day, I'm still the person who straps on a smile, and I always felt that was what I wanted to do to show people, So I do understand that it's a feeling so deep inside of you, and you feel so very helpless. And I don't ever want anyone to feel that way. I never want you to feel like you're alone. There's always someone you can reach out to. And I honestly feel like sometimes strangers are better,
Well, thank goodness you were able to get some help and make those changes, and now make all of these positive changes in your life. And I think that's really the hurdle for a lot of people is, one, you guys had mentioned earlier about support systems, and not everybody's fortunate enough to have a strong support system. And that could be one person, or it could be a family, or it could be a variety of people. And not to always bring up the men's side of stuff, but men also have a really hard time making friends as we get older. Loneliness is a huge, huge factor. And so all of these things kind of compound to magnify some of the impacts of these feelings. And so it's really important to find someone that you can talk to, whoever that is. And you mentioned strangers are sometimes easier, and that's certainly the case for a lot of people, right? It's not unusual to want to find someone that's not embedded in your social circle, because then you could tell them things you wouldn't otherwise be able to. And so there's a lot of strength in that as well. And so I think it's different for everybody, and everybody has to figure out what's going to work for them and what's going to be the most efficient or effective. But I think ultimately, what we have to kind of stress for everybody is that we all need to talk to somebody. Yeah. Right? And so talking to someone, anyone, could make all the difference in someone's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that there have been studies about the difference in the nature of like, and this is a very like heteronormative and cisgender way to talk about it, but like male-male or female-female relationships in which there's like, it's called, what is it, face-to-face versus shoulder-to-shoulder.
Right.
So there's a suggestion that men bond shoulder-to-shoulder while doing an activity, while watching basketball or at a bar or whatever. And this doesn't always actually facilitate like emotionally fulfilling conversations and ways in which they actually get to know each other on a deeper level, whereas women tend to do activities like brunch.
Yeah.
Very stereotypical.
Yeah.
But like there is a sense of they are engaging in discussions about their life and like where they're at. And I think that can impact the level of our friendships and whether or not we feel safe and heard to confide things that might be difficult for us.
I agree 1,000%. Absolutely. And when you say shoulder to shoulder, I'm just reminded of a lot of the conversations because trying to break out of that shoulder-to-shoulder approach can be awkward.
So tough.
And it's really, really difficult for men to do things face-to-face. But if you can achieve that, you know, the differences are pretty substantial because women are known for being a little bit better when it comes to that kind of communication and those kinds of friendships, even though there's kind of a weird cultural stigma around women's friendships nowadays too.
There is.
Yeah.
But in that, I would also say, so try and be the friend maybe who does reach out and ask the questions, because I know personally I won't say to you what my issues are unless you're coming to me and like, is everything okay? Let's talk about it. So it's nice to have that person who will reach out and say, you know, let's get real with it. Let's talk about it. What is going on in your life and what are the things that you maybe are struggling with, and just having those conversations with people, I think is going to be key, especially this time of year, to reach out to some of the people, you know, that maybe don't have the family. You know, I know my cousin has lost both of her parents, so she feels like we are the only family, which is why I thought she was just texting me in that group chat.
Girl, everyone has accidentally sent the wrong chat.
Yeah. So
what I'd probably add to all of these incredible comments is sometimes men will rely on their partner for all of these things. And so not only are you their partner, you're their best friend, you're their only friend. And that creates like really problematic pressure on the relationship because we all need friends. We all need to be away from each other, and absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's like
It takes
it's
a
real.
village.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So all of these things, they might sound like jokes and they might all of that kind of stuff, but we really do need multiple relationships. And I'd say if mental health is the variable that we're talking about, being able to have successful friendships with multiple people is a variable that's often not discussed, but in there for sure, because we have to have functioning relationships with a lot of people just to get through every day. And that's everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and different personalities bring out different sides of ourselves,
For
right?
sure.
Which is like, I mean, we don't have to go down this route, but talking about ethical non-monogamy or polyamory, like a lot of the idea is that the love is abundant and it's not conditional and it's not finite. It's not a resource that runs out. We just have a lot of it. So I have, I don't know how many best friends, and they all, you know, serve different like functions
in
within
your life.
our network, and it's a patchwork and a quilt, and it brings out different colors in me.
I love that. Yeah.
I love it too. I also have I call them my council.
Yes.
So it's like
The tribal council.
right. So they're my council. It's like a group of, they're not all guys, but it's like 8 guys and then 3 women in my council. And so a lot of them know each other. And so we all have a variety of different relationships. And if something big is happening, it's like, let me adjourn my council.
Yeah.
Right. And to bring us all together so that we can talk about
Vote
stuff.
and make a decision.
Yeah. No, that's great. But I mean, having a big group like that is obviously like key and, you know, and very important. But I also know that there's not a lot of people who have all of that. So you're definitely not alone. You can always reach out to, probably not me, but there are people and there are numbers that we have put down. I find like anytime I do these shows, I do get it like a kind of an overwhelming flush of emails of people telling me their woes. And I'm like, I can't be this person for everybody though. So as much as I want to be for everybody and be there, it's not the
You're not the
personal.
therapist,
Yes.
But how wonderful that people feel comfortable enough with the work
and
that we're doing.
Yes, I do appreciate
that they can talk to us about stuff that's going on. And
Yes.
no, we're not therapists,
Yes.
and we're not claiming to be.
Yes.
But we do know a little bit a little bit about functional relationships and dysfunctional relationships, right? We all have both.
Yes.
And there's no circle that's perfect. And we're all really lucky that we have you that lets us talk about this kind of stuff, because otherwise it's really not happening as much as it should, even though it's gotten a little bit better, right? Younger generations now are way better than older generations in talking about these things and others, but it's still not great.
Well, and you just said that, and let's not forget that the elderly are suffering with mental health issues just the same as young people are, so, and a lot of times they also feel forgotten. And I think on the holidays, a big thing is feeling forgotten and feeling lonely, so let's remember that our elderly folks are still there. And even though that may be a little lackluster and what they're able to do, maybe they can just sit on the couch and tell you the same story they've told you 15 times, but let them tell the story, so I just reach out for others and try and be there as much as you can for friends. And if you are alone, please reach out and feel free to reach out to the hotlines that we've set up here for you. So is there anything else, Dr. Eddie, that we want to really jump into before we go?
I have something.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Please.
Can we talk about the history of the stigmatization of sex within the mental health industry?
Oh, boy.
Because, it's a whopper. We can't cover it all of it right now. But, briefly running through it, things like impotence and erectile dysfunction were initially considered to be, character flaws, or there was a period in which they were, a spell out of witchcraft. But then we had things like Freud came in, and Freud really fucked shit up. Freud had a lot of opinions about, BDSM, about desires, latent desires, where all of that came from. And so I think, just to go a broad stroke, so we're not taking up too much time.
No, go for it. Yeah.
There is a lot of this idea that hypersexuality, hyposexuality, any of that is wrong, that there are wrong ways to have sex. And I don't believe that to be true if everybody is a consenting adult that is enjoying what's happening. And I think when we look at sex within that box and that framework, it applies additional pressure to our anxiety, our performance anxiety, our feelings about ourselves, that we're not doing it right. When studies show that the way to have sex enjoyably, good sex, is formed through communication, being present, and connecting with your partner, however you choose to do that, whether it's romantic or not.
110%. I only wish that words would have come out of my mouth because they were so beautiful and eloquent.
This country has a long history, and a lot of other places, right? Based on religion, based on the culture in certain areas. And so you had mentioned Kinsey earlier, the Kinsey scale. And so Alfred Kinsey, I was a fan.
Yes.
And so when he did his seminal work in the 1940s on the sexual behavior of the human male and the human female a few years later, it really created quite the stir. Because it was implying that women love sex, men enjoy lots of sex, masturbation, all of those things that weren't the cultural norm, certainly not discussed. And so his work was monumental. And the Kinsey scale itself, just to clarify, is kind of like how heterosexual are you?
Yeah.
Right? And so the implication is that not everybody's completely anything.
A zero or a 6.
Right, a 0 or a 6. And that doesn't necessarily exist. And so everyone is somewhere in the middle there, and that changes over time. And so that contribution really shifted a lot of our sex talk. Maybe not at the time because people were freaked out, but later in life, a lot of sex ed researchers and sexual health researchers definitely go back to some of their work. And the Kinsey Institute, which is in Indiana, is based, it's for sexual health, and it's really based on a lot of his initial work because that's where he was doing his initial research. And so it's so awesome that you brought that in. So thank you.
Yeah.
Kinsey was also, by the by, the hype man for the clit.
Yes.
Kinsey
Nice.
was one of the people who really popularized the idea that vaginal orgasms, so penetrative orgasms, are not the be-all, end-all, and they're not top tier,
Yes.
that most people require clitoral stimulation. But then there was, who was it? Kegel. Oh, Kegel?
Yeah.
Came back and was like, no, you're wrong. Actually, vaginal orgasms are the best. So people who can't have them just have floppy vaginas and they need to do Kegels.
Oh, God.
Fun history lesson there about
Right.
that, which
Yeah.
is not true, by the way.
Yeah, I was going
Which
to
is
say,
not true.
which worked out for him.
correct.
Selling that to everyone. So, yeah, interesting.
We've often discussed how it's really since we're talking about what we know and what we don't
Yeah.
know. A lot of young men are learning from pornography in the
Yes.
adult film industry. Vaginal orgasms are the thing on a lot of them, and we've discussed it before in different podcasts. But without clitoral stimulation, sometimes it doesn't work or doesn't happen
Like
at all.
70
Right.
to 80% of the population cannot orgasm through penetration alone.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I'm part of that population.
I am too.
Every woman I've met, actually.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
a part of that population.
Yeah.
I also found something you said earlier very interesting when we were talking about like the social stigmas of what you're supposed to be sexually. I saw a thing the other day, and it was interviewing women and what women would look for in a sexual partner. And it said, would you look for the player mentality or would you look for, the virginal man? And every single woman said the same thing. She wants the player mentality because she doesn't want to teach sex to a man. She wants a man who already knows what he's doing. But in the opposite of that, men, when asked that same question, want a virginal woman who has not had a lot of partners. So
But wants them still
how
to be a
are
sex
we
superstar.
right? Yes. So how are we finding all of these virginal women when all of our men are out here frolicking around with a greatness, and that's what we're looking for. But we're also looking for this virginal woman who no one has been with yet. So
I think-
somehow still playing into our weird pedophilia that I find.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with not having a lot of sexual experience. Everyone
Right.
has to get it somehow.
Yes,
Obviously,
of
we
course.
all start at ground zero.
Yes.
But I also think in retaliation to this idea that like we want people who are virginal.
Yeah.
When you pick a fantasy sports team, do you put a bunch of players on the team
Right.
that have never played the
Yes.
sport? You wouldn't put me on there. I'd fuck shit up. So,
Right, right. I'm going to run in the wrong direction for sure. Yeah.
experience is not like a character deficit.
Yes. Or a flaw.
Correct,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Culture dictates very specific things in this
Yes,
country and in
yeah.
other countries for sure. And more conservative countries certainly have different approaches to these
Right.
very issues. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to change the minds of the conservative few.
We
at
are
this
not.
point, right? And so contributing to the conversation, I think, is really important.
I will say, though, no, I do say that we're not going to change conservative minds, but we are, because I used to be a conservative mind. I grew up in conservative world. I grew up in the Midwest, and I had those mentalities. I had to unlearn so much about my own self. I had to learn so much about my mental health, which is how I was able to crawl out of it. And you know how I changed my mental health? Learning my sexuality. Getting into pornography and learning who I was as a woman and what I wanted sexually, and getting with partners who were willing to learn and listen and go on this journey with me made my mental game so much stronger, and I became this badass bitch by learning my own sexual pleasures and my own sexual desires and fulfilling those fantasies and working through that with partners who I can communicate that with. So I think it's so huge and so important, and it really is all tied together, your mental health, your sexual health, and we want you to have happy, healthy lives in both of those departments. So if there's anything we can do, if there's any questions that you have, please feel free to write those in, and we would gladly answer them on later episodes. If I think we're good here, does everyone feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Are we good? All right. Angeline, I cannot thank you enough. You have been a ray of sunshine and so plethora of valuable information, and I'm so thankful to have you here. So thank
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. So I'm on social media. At Angelina Mirenda is my personal page where I do a little bit more of the art stuff. And then on Instagram, AP Sex Education. So like advanced placement, sex education is where I do a lot more talking about like sex and connection. And then we're on TikTok at AP Segs, SEGGS. ED, because TikTok is Sauron and the eye is always watching.
And we're going to add those on the next episode as well,
Awesome.
so everyone
Thank
can
you.
find those, because I didn't know that until today. So like I said, we're new to this,
Yeah.
you and I, so we're going to learn a lot more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Eddy, thank you again for all of your hard work and the research that you do for each and every episode. So thankful to you. So, all right, guys, that is it for this week. And until next time, adios.